I need you to do something before I start. Just for a second. Stop whatever you're doing. Put the phone down if you're holding it. Stop fidgeting. And just sit there. Now pay attention to your own thoughts. Not what you're thinking about. I mean the actual texture of your thinking. The way one idea bleeds into the next. The rhythm of it. Does it feel like you're driving? Or does it feel more like you're watching the road go by and assuming because you're sitting in the front seat that you must be the one behind the wheel? Because here's what I've been trying to wrap my head around for the past 3 weeks. What if the thing you call your inner voice isn't entirely yours? What if something else got there first? Not from outside your head, not from some supernatural source, not anything you can point to or prove. Just a second voice, quiet, patient, slightly ahead of you. And what if the scariest part isn't that it's there, but that it's always been there, and you just never knew what you were listening to? This is what happened to me. I'm still not sure I came out the other side of it. Three weeks ago, I was in the worst stretch of work I'd had in years. Deadlines stacking up. 4 hours of sleep a night if I was lucky. The kind of exhaustion where you stop tasting your food because your brain has reallocated all its resources to just keeping the engine running. So when I started noticing my thoughts felt crowded, that was the word I kept coming back to. Crowded. I filed it under side effects of being a functional disaster and moved on. But then something changed. It stopped feeling like my own thoughts were busy. It started feeling like someone else was in the room. The first time I really noticed it, I was making coffee. Tuesday morning. Ate something. My brain was running on autopilot. Grab the mug, measure the grounds, wait for the water to boil. And I had a thought, I should really cut back on this stuff. Completely normal thought. I'd been drinking too much coffee. My hands had that slight tremor that comes from 3 espressos before noon. But here's the thing. Before that thought finished forming, before it was fully there, fully mine, there was already another one, sitting right on top of it. You've got a long day. You need it. I stood at the counter with a kettle in my hand and didn't move for probably 10 seconds. Because those two thoughts had arrived too close together. There was no gap between them the way there normally is when your brain argues with itself. No delay. No sense that one had triggered the other. It felt like one thought was already waiting for the other to show up. I told myself it was nothing. Of course I did. What else do you do with that? But then it happened again the next day. I was reading something at my desk, some industry report, completely mindless, and I started to drift. My attention was wandering toward what I was going to have for lunch, and before that idea even fully materialized, the second voice said, "Thai place on the corner." And that's what I got for lunch. Not because I was told to, not because I felt compelled, but because once the idea was there, inside my head, refusing it felt harder than just going with it. I want you to sit with that for a second, because I think it's important. A thought appeared in my mind that I did not consciously generate. I treated it as my own decision. And I made that decision. How many times a day do you think that happens to all of us? I started paying closer attention, not obsessively, not in a paranoid, I think I'm losing my mind kind of way. More like how you'd listen more carefully after you think you hear something in another room. You don't freak out, you just tune in. And once I started tuning in, I couldn't stop noticing it. The thought that showed up before I'd finished forming the question. The sentence that completed itself before I got to the end. The image that appeared in my head a half beat before I consciously tried to picture something. Again and again and again. Not random noise, not scatter, purposeful, consistent. Like a second voice that knew exactly where I was going and was just always slightly ahead of me. I'm a pretty analytical person by nature. When something doesn't make sense, my instinct isn't to catastrophize, it's to test, to gather data, to try to find the edges of the thing. So on Wednesday night, I lay in bed with the lights off, and I designed a little experiment. I was going to think of a random number, genuinely random, not a date, not a number, with any personal significance, not something predictable, a weird, specific number. The kind that has no reason to exist in my head. I started forming it, 4 digits, something in the 4,000s, starting with a 4,719. I sat up. That was the number. Exactly. Completely, but it had arrived in my head fully formed approximately half a second before I'd consciously chosen it. I lay back down, tried again. This time, a color, something obscure, not red, not blue, something you'd have to actually search for a name for. I was reaching for it, not quite there yet. Verdigris. The greenish blue you get on old copper, statues, old clock faces. That was the color I'd been reaching for. It was already there. I did it 7 more times that night. 7 for 7. Every single thought that I was about to arrive at the voice got there first. Not guessing, not close, but not quite. Exactly right, every time. With no hesitation and no margin of error. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, and I thought it too. Maybe your subconscious is just fast. Maybe the choice happens below the level of conscious awareness, and by the time you're aware of it, the decision's already made. There's actually research on this studies where brain activity associated with a decision shows up seconds before the person thinks they made it. Maybe that's all this is. The science has a name for it: the readiness potential. The idea that your brain has already voted before you get to the ballot box. That free will, at least in the neurological sense, might be a story we tell ourselves after the fact. I knew about all of that, and for about 2 days, that explanation was enough. Then the voice stopped answering my questions and started asking its own. The shift happened on a Thursday. I was at my desk, doing something completely routine, going through emails, half paying attention when the voice said something I hadn't been thinking about at all. Did you lock your car this morning? I hadn't been thinking about my car. I hadn't been thinking about anything in particular. The thought arrived from nowhere, dropped into my head like a stone into still water. And immediately, without wanting to, I was thinking about my car. I sat with it for a minute, trying to let it go. Yes, I locked it. I always lock it. I have a habit I would remember. Are you sure? You were in a hurry. Here's the thing about a thought like that. Once it's there, it doesn't leave. It just sits in the back of your mind and quietly applies pressure. Not enough to be overwhelming. Just enough to make every other thought slightly less comfortable to be in. I lasted about 20 minutes before I went to the car park to check. Locked, obviously. I came back to my desk feeling slightly ridiculous. Then, 30 minutes later, checked the stove. Did you turn it off before you left this morning? I live alone. I hadn't used the stove. I'd had cold brew and a granola bar for breakfast. But I spent the rest of the afternoon with a low-grade anxiety I couldn't shake. Not panic, not even proper worry, just that persistent, low-level wrongness that makes it hard to concentrate. By Friday, I was writing it all down. Every time the voice said something, I opened a notes app on my phone and logged it, what it said, what time, whether I'd acted on it. After 3 days, I had the log in front of me. 31 entries. I'd acted on 22 of them. 70%. And not once, not a single time had acting on them produced anything useful. The car was always locked. The stove was always off. The door was always closed. Nothing the voice pointed me toward was ever actually wrong. It was just pointing, and I was just following. I want to be careful here, because I know how this sounds. Voice in my head telling me to check the door. I get it. That's a very clinical description of something that has a very clinical name. But this wasn't OCD. I know what OCD feels like, and I know people who have it, and I'm not going to casually throw that label around. This was different because it didn't feel like anxiety. It felt like instruction. There's a difference between your brain generating fear about something that crawling, irrational, what if energy that spirals, and a clear, calm, declarative statement appearing in your head. Check the door. Not, what if you didn't lock the door? What if something happens because you didn't lock it? Just check the door. Specific, calm, waiting. Like a command issued from somewhere with more certainty than I ever have about anything. And every time I followed it, every time I got up and checked the thing it told me to check, I felt something I can only describe as a transfer. Like I'd handed something over. Small, incremental, but it was accumulating. I decided to stop engaging. Completely. Whatever the voice said, ignore it. Don't check the door. Don't verify the thing it pointed at. Don't give it the satisfaction, if satisfaction is even a concept that applies here, of being followed. Treat it like a bad habit. Don't feed it, it goes away. The first day was harder than I expected. Not because the voice got louder. If anything, it got quieter. But the discomfort of not following it hung around longer, like a word you can't remember that keeps hovering just outside your grasp. That sensation of an open loop in your brain that refuses to close. I sat with it, breathed through it, distracted myself. By day 3, quiet. Real quiet. The kind that felt clean. I slept properly for the first time in 2 weeks. Woke up on Saturday morning with actual sunlight coming through the curtains. Made eggs. Drank coffee without thinking anything particularly strange. Maybe it was stress. Maybe it's gone. Maybe that's the whole story. Saturday night. I went to bed at a reasonable hour. Lay in the dark. Felt my body start to relax the way it does when you're finally genuinely tired without the weight of anxiety pressing down on top of it. Started to drift. And then, a whisper. Not inside my head. Behind my ear. Very close. Close enough that if someone were actually standing there, I would have felt the warmth of their breath. Soft. Almost gentle. You finally stopped answering. I didn't move. I'm not sure I breathed. My brain was doing something I don't have a good word for. Not panic, not reasoning, just a kind of frantic stillness, while it tried to process something it had no framework for. Because if the voice was in my head, then a whisper from behind my ear made no sense. But I heard it, behind my ear, distinct, located in space. And then it spoke again, quieter than before, but more precise. It told me the exact thought I was about to have, word for word, before I'd finished having it. And lying there in the dark, heart going at about twice its normal rate, I finally understood what I'd been getting wrong. From the very beginning, I had been asking the wrong question. For 3 weeks, I'd been treating this as a mystery with one possible shape. Something is in my head. It knows what I'm going to think. It speaks before I do. But that framing assumed that I was the starting point, that my thought was the original and the voice was the copy. What if that's backwards? What if the voice isn't fast because it's reading my mind? What if I'm slow because I'm the echo? Think about how an echo works. Sound travels from a source, hits a surface, bounces back. You hear the original first, and then the reflection. But imagine you were the reflection. Imagine you had no memory of the source, no awareness of the moment the original sound was made. You just exist, happening, moving through the world, generating thoughts that feel like yours, making decisions that feel like choices, experiencing everything from the inside. And the whole time you're just sound bouncing off a wall. The source already spoke. You're catching up. Every thought I'd been so sure was mine, every opinion, preference, instinct, feeling had started somewhere before I was consciously aware of it, before I arrived to claim it. My brain had processed the input, made a selection, prepared a thought for delivery, and then handed it to me, the conscious witness, to experience as a decision. And I'd been calling that free will. What's behind me is not following my thoughts. I have been following its. All along, every thought I've ever claimed as mine was just me catching up to something already in motion and mistaking the echo for my own voice. The thing behind me, whatever is generating the signal that I've been calling myself, was very close to me in the dark of that room. and I suddenly wasn't sure if I had ever been alone at all. I've told a few people about this. Not the full version. I didn't want to watch them decide which category of person to be worried about to put me in. I kept it vague, casual. Just, do you ever feel like your thoughts aren't entirely your own? Most people laughed it off. Stress, they said. Intrusive thoughts are normal. You're overthinking the way you think. But one person, someone I've known for a long time, someone whose mind I respect, stopped before she answered, looked at me for a moment, then said, I think everyone has that. I think most of us just learn not to notice it. Not, it goes away. Not, it's not real. We learn not to notice it. I've been sitting with that sentence ever since. Because if she's right, if this is a feature, not a bug, something every human consciousness contains, then the question isn't why I experienced it. The question is why most people don't. Or more precisely, what we lose when we stop noticing. If the thing generating your thoughts is always slightly ahead of the thing experiencing them, and the gap is small enough that you never catch the seam, then you'll spend your entire life feeling like you're choosing things that have already been chosen. Feeling like you're authoring a story that was written before you sat down. Feeling like the voice in your head is yours. I don't know what the voice is. I've considered every explanation I can think of. Neurological, psychological, philosophical, the ones that have clinical names and the ones that don't. None of them feel complete. What I know is this. Something in my head, or something adjacent to my head, something close enough that the boundary between inside and outside stopped being reliable, was always one step ahead of me. And for 3 weeks, I followed it, 70% of the time, without even realizing I was following. And when I stopped following, it whispered in my ear. And what it said wasn't threatening, wasn't angry, wasn't anything as simple as a horror movie would give you. It just said, you finally stopped answering, which implies it had noticed. So here's the only thing I want you to take from this. The next time you have a thought, just a random, unprovoked, appeared out of nowhere thought before you claim it, before you treat it as yours, ask yourself where it came from. Not rhetorically. Actually, try to trace it back. Try to find the moment before the thought, the space where it didn't exist yet. Most of the time, you won't find it. And that might be fine. That might just be the normal texture of human consciousness, thoughts arriving faster than awareness, the brain doing its work below the waterline. Or there's something in there with you, patient, quiet, occasionally saying your thoughts out loud before you get to them. Not to frighten you, just to remind you it's there. And if that's the case, the question isn't whether it's listening. The question is whether it's been talking long enough that you've started to think its voice is yours. I think, for most of us, the answer is yes. I just hope you figured that out from listening to me. And not because it already told you,